Hello and welcome to Behind the Scenes, an Out of Frame podcast. I'm your host, Sean Malone, creator of Out of Frame, creative director for the Foundation for Economic Education, here for the first time in quite a long time in the studio with Paul Nelson, our Out of Frame Shorts editor and social media director, and Jen Maffasanti, back as Jen Bot, all the way from Utah. How are you doing, Jen?
I am doing great. How are y'all doing?
Good. Very good. We're coming back in a weird point because we had some technical difficulties and had to kind of restart this whole thing. But that's fun, actually. We've figured out some of the tricks here. Obviously, like, this is a weird one for us anyway because we got Jen on a monitor and she's coming in from Utah. We're here in the studio. It's a different setup than we've ever done before, and bear with us as we work through some kinks. Who knows what's exactly going to happen here, but
yeah, we're professionals. We'll get this done.
We'll figure it out. Honestly, so far it's been pretty good. Side note, by the way, it's kind of insane that we're able to do this at all. So this is,
right.
Quick shout out for how comparatively easy this was without having a $100 million broadcast studio or anything else. Like
capitalism.
I know. Like we don't have. We don't have an ISDN. We don't have like a cable link.
This would not be possible 10 years ago.
No, it wouldn't have been possible at all. In fact, I remember 10 years ago, I was working as a creative media producer for a news outlet, and I had gotten guy came in, like a salesman came in trying to sell me like an all-in-one box solution for like satellite link ups to do news hits from the newsroom. And that was like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it would have been really the only way we could have done that, except for he was just coming in too late. Like, it was 2011 at the time. And like, we were all starting to figure out that Skype was workable. It wasn't great then. Like, you wouldn't want to do that like directly into CNN or anything, but like, yeah, I mean, this kind of stuff was starting to become a possibility, and now look at where we are.
Now everybody comes in.
I know.
Via Skype on CNN.
It's all the time.
Yeah.
People are coming in literally via Skype or Zoom on, the Tonight Show at this point. So it's...
Who watches that?
Nobody, but still. I was going to say Conan, because Conan's the only one that I actually do watch ever. Like, I watch clips occasionally.
Yeah.
But since the pandemic started, I haven't really watched any of it.
Yeah.
Is anybody watching late night shows? The other question is, does anybody care what celebrities have to say on Zoom in general?
Yeah, the whole appeal of late night television is it's lost a lot of its luster because Zoom conversations, just you can't do silly stuff, you can't do the skits. And
there's no live audience, there's no like carpool karaoke, there's no like wheel of impressions.
Right.
Yeah, you can't really do any of that stuff. It got weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
Are you watching any of that?
I was never a fan, so
yeah, fair. I don't know. I mean, like, I always watched it just on YouTube, like watch clips on YouTube, but I don't really do that anymore.
Yeah. It's pretty predictable.
I don't know.
It's all delved into politics, which is never a good thing. And
that too.
And none of the hosts are all that compelling.
Agreed. I think that's actually one of the things that is kind of exposed too a little bit, which is that like all this technology aside, like it's made it sort of clear that like in certain context, without having the production behind a lot of these guys, they're not that funny.
No.
Like, you're hanging out with your buddies on Zoom is more entertaining than, watching Jimmy Fallon in a lot of cases.
Right. And now there's also thousands of options.
Oh, yeah. Now you're just watching somebody do an interview show on YouTube. And if I'm going to do that, I'd rather watch Hot Ones.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Big facts right there.
Yeah. I don't know. So this actually kind of segues. I'm going to try to segue this a little bit. It's a little bit weird to our episode, but today we wanted to talk about an Apple TV show, which previously you guys missed my complaints about Apple TV, so I'll spare you that again. But Paul convinced us to get Apple TV Plus
Yes, the plus.
The plus is important in this one. I don't understand why everything is a plus either, but
because it's a plus. It's you add things.
Am I? Really? Whatever. Anyway, Paul convinced us to do 2 episodes in a row on Apple TV Plus shows. The first one being Mythic Quest Raven's Banquet, which is pretty ridiculous, but actually I think works well in this context of like everybody doing everything online, including playing massive multiplayer, online role-playing games, which Mythic Quest is a show about basically about a game studio and a kind of an insane narcissist who's running the studio. But we'll get to that in a minute. I think I'm pretty excited to talk about it because actually, to Paul's credit, I enjoyed this show.
Imagine that I was right.
Paul was not wrong. Paul was more right about the second choice, which we'll talk about next week, but we'll get to there in a minute. But in the meantime, actually, I've been before we talk about that, I know you guys were watching what is it called, Bridgerton? Bridgerton?
Bridgerton. Yes.
If you say it with an English accent, it comes out better.
All right, what is this? I don't even know what this is. I've heard terrible things, and then I have one friend. We have a mutual friend who has watched it like 5 times in a row.
Wow.
Also.
Dedication.
Yes, she has.
Shout out to Brittany Hunter.
5 times.
No, I'm exaggerating. She was on 3 the last time that I saw her talk about it. But I'm pretty sure she will get to 5.
Yeah.
This is my guess.
Yeah. So
it doesn't surprise me.
But I don't know anything about this. Why?
So I was pitched the show to watch it with my wife, and my wife wanted to watch it, and she said it's a cross between Downton Abbey and Gossip Girl, which turned me off completely. And I said, yeah, no. So I ended up watching it.
Definitely not. We're absolutely not watching this.
Later that night.
Cut to.
Yep, exactly. Later that night, we're watching it. And we got a few episodes in, and we got done with an episode. And I turned to my wife and I said, this isn't Downton Abbey. This isn't Gossip Girl. This is Love Island 1813.
And then Paul fell in love with it.
And I was hooked.
Realized that Love Island is... Which I still haven't watched a single.
It's literally the same thing. It's a reality show that is masquerading as a scripted show.
I hate to do this, and I apologize in advance, Jen, for what I'm about to say. But Paul, can you remind me what Love Island is?
So it is a show that originated in England. Hence, this show is Bridgerton set in England, and they bring a group of eligible singles to live in one house for a summer. And they get paired up, and love triangles happen, and all kinds of things. And that is basically the same premise of Bridgerton. You have the high society of 1813 England, all coming to London. What's it called? The Ton? They call it a Ton.
The Ton.
And it's
the Ton.
It's engagements.
Bridgerton, but the Ton.
No. That's just that is what is referred to, like that's what they used to refer to polite society, the aristocracy.
Right.
I see.
So they bring everyone in for engagement season. That is what they call it. It is a season. Basically it is entailing balls, dancing, scandals, and there's a Julie Andrews provides
triangles.
Yes, and there's Julie Andrews provides the voiceover as what's her I lost her name, and it doesn't matter. But it literally is a narrator over previously on Love Island 1813.
This is going to be terrible, but on the way in here this morning, I was listening to Adam Carolla's podcast, and they started a new game on the show called Dead or Alive, which is a game to decide whether or not you'll be told a celebrity, and you have to decide whether or not they are in fact dead or alive. And they did a great parody song from Bon Jovi. It's really good. But Julie Andrews on that list for me. I did not know.
Alive.
I did not actually know she was still around. Alive, turns out. Huh. And narrating stuff.
And narrating things. And so after realizing this is just a reality show and has nothing to do with Downton Abbey or Gossip Girl, I was hooked. And we went.
And you just binged the whole thing.
We just went right through it.
Jen, did you similarly binge the entire thing and love it?
I mean, I did. I was really excited to watch this show because I am a shameless fan of like Regency and Victorian romance novels. Okay? I love a good bodice ripper. And I'm not sorry.
Bodice ripper.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's scandalous.
So when this show was presented to me on Netflix, I was like, "Ooh, yes, please! I'm so excited. This ticks all of my boxes." And I watched it, and I did not enjoy it at all. Like, yes, it was fun. It was sexy, but I hated all of the characters. Like, they are not good people.
But see, okay, so to come to Paul's defense here a little bit, like preemptively, none of the characters on Love Island could possibly be any good.
No, they're all terrible people. And this is I think you hating this, which is surprising because I haven't found very many people that hate it. It's a pretty popular show, but like with you hating reality television, it makes total sense that you don't like this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess so. And like, I wanted to like this show. I was really looking forward to it. I watched it and I didn't enjoy it. I thought, well, maybe something just got lost in the translation for the adaptation. So I went and I bought the book. Okay, this is based on a series of books by Julia Quinn. And I went and bought the first one.
I feel like you're about to make Paul's point about not reading books, but go on.
And I didn't like the book either. Like, I did not enjoy the book either. It was just, again, it was a story about terrible people doing terrible things to each other, but it's okay because love
conquers all.
Yeah, but is it? Well, I was gonna say, like, stuff like that. I always also find the love parts of it to be completely fake because none of these people are. Like they have their own personalities, or they're not stable human beings ever. So could you trust the idea? No, of course not, because the next season there will be more drama, and whatever love relationship they formed this season, all bets are off next season. So it's not even really. It's not like a love story you end and you're like, oh, those two are gonna make it. Like they're gonna go off and live happily ever after, and it's gonna be good, and I feel good about that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you spend the first, I don't know, however long of your marriage just lying to each other about like super important things, not like oh no, that dress looks lovely on you, or I had
to be
a great
honest,
time.
I feel like those kinds of lies are a bad choice as well.
Just don't.
Well, they are
generally,
but
just don't. I mean, pick your moments.
I mean, we're talking about like having kids.
Oh no,
that's a big deal.
This is going to go wrong for so many.
It got weird. It got weird. And like the fulfilling of trust was a interesting way of showing a fulfilling of trust. There was fulfilling of needs, I guess you can say. But
I got viscerally angry at that situation.
It was awkward.
At both of them.
Yeah. So
that is so weird.
My biggest complaint with Love Island 1813 is that, and this is my complaint with like Downton Abbey and all these different shows like this, they portray life in that time period as way too good. Way too good. And it bugs me because people, I think it contributes to this notion that we see a lot and that we live in like the worst times, 2020 sucked. And it's just like, I would rather live in any other time period in human history. And I'm like, whoa.
Weirdly, I think the same is actually true to some extent for what we're about to talk about. It was not Mythic Quest specifically because it's set in the present, but like those kinds of games, right? Like people spend a lot of time in fantasy universes, and I'm not opposed to that. It's super fun, right? I mean, like, and there's nothing wrong with playing, World of Warcraft or whatever. But like at the same time, if you think that you can just amble through that kind of world and just have magical spells handling all of your your daily problems. Like that's not really
Right.
it's not really a good sense of what life was like. But yeah, I agree. I think like all of those kinds of shows like Downton Abbey and stuff like that, like, but they're always set around
The
wealthiest
1% of the 1%.
Oh yeah,
Like,
it is the
super wealthy,
0.001
yeah.
percenters, and that is who you're basically presenting. This is what society was like. Oh no,
Yeah.
no.
They did one scene where they tried to scare a girl straight. They went to the bad part of town in Love Island 1813, Bridgerton, and it still was too nice. There still wasn't. It wasn't. You could just tell it was a set, and I'm just like, gosh,
Yeah.
like, yeah, it looks worse than what we've seen other places. But come on.
So, if you've watched like Vikings, for example, I actually feel the same way about Vikings because Vikings shows. First of all, it's always centered around the leaders of the kings. Basically, it's all a bunch of kings and queens and people who are kind of up at the upper end of the Viking society. But even then, they have like long houses and these big great halls and stuff. But they are way too big. If you've ever actually been to a Viking village, like I've been to one in Denmark, even like the great halls are 15 by 15. They're small little because you've got to build these things out of wood like that you've cut down with a stone axe or something, and it's a huge problem, right? Like these things are not like building one bronze or steel axe head would take you days and days and days to do. Not many people had any of that stuff. Like you couldn't really, you don't have a lot of the kinds of tools that you need to really build big, like it's a lot of work. Nobody could do it. And then you walk around and you see those kinds of villages and all of the houses are, 6 feet tall at most with thatched roofs. And they're like a, 8 by 8 little box where you get in and you put a little fire in a corner and you sleep in the other corner. And then all these shows like show them as being, this grandiose,
Right.
Super ornate. And yeah, there were a few of those kinds of things. Like if you were a king, but only if you were like a pretty
Wealthy.
important king, and probably not in the 800s, probably more like in the 1200s, you got to get up into that territory. It is weird that we kind of do that with all of those shows.
We live in a time where you can binge a show about make-believe love and not get off your couch and get a ball gown delivered to you, food, and have like just all this other stuff that
you could turn your house just for the sake of a party into a Downton Abbey themed type of party for a tiny fraction of your annual salary.
Yep. Like
that's a weird time to live in, and the fact that people like don't appreciate that is very strange to me. Oh,
yep.
Jen's lights went
I
down.
stood still too long.
You got to move.
She has to move. Will it work? Oh,
there we go.
And we have that.
All right. Well, that's I think that's a good time marker. Let's start talking about Mythic Quest. So Mythic Quest, I didn't really know what to make of it, but honestly, you sell me on Charlie Day and Rob McElhenney and Megan Gantz, and I think, okay, I could do this. It's by the creators of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Megan Gantz also was the EP for Community and for something else, Modern Family, actually, I think she worked on. Stars Rob McElhenney and a girl I didn't know, Charlotte Niegdow. Is that how you say that? I'm not really sure. As Poppy, an Australian actress. And it's about a guy who's a narcissist running the greatest MMORPG that's ever been made, and the sort of studio that he creates is just kind of a madhouse. So it's a fun show, actually. Mm-hmm. And I think it gets a lot about the game industry kind of dead on too, which is fun.
It does what Silicon Valley did for tech industry, for the video game industry. It really goes hard after YouTubers, which is it's pretty funny.
It is.
But also just the culture. There's episode 3. We'll probably talk more about it, but it's pretty much there's Nazis in the game, and and then it just devolves into how do we solve this issue? Because it's obviously an issue. We got to solve it. And the show, I think, ends on a really poignant note.
Yeah.
On how to deal with these kind of people.
Yeah, this is I think a really interesting facet of the show. The show's obviously like a send up of all this kind of stuff anyway, but like I've been talking with people about that episode. So the episode that Paul's talking about, they're like I forget Joe. What's her title? She's like the
assistant to.
She's David's assistant.
No, the player liaison. Is it not Joe?
Oh.
I know you're talking about.
Anyway, whatever. She realizes, she gets complaints that there are, I think she said like 40 Nazis playing this game. Which, again, this is a game that's played by millions and millions and millions of people. So they've found 40 Nazis.
And Kotaku wrote an article.
About it. And so they're getting slammed about how this game is now like a haven for white supremacy or whatever. And then they get together, the CEO of the company, David, pulls together a group of like a diversity committee, basically, to try to figure out how to set the rules on how to, because he has a problem. It's not in their terms of service that you're not allowed, like Nazis aren't allowed to play the game, right? Mm-hmm. So they don't have any rules or clarity on whether or not they could just ban these people. And so they recognize that it's sort of a challenge. If they just go and ban these people for what? They haven't violated their terms of service. They're just playing the game, and they happen to be Nazis. So he gets this diversity committee together, and that alone we need to talk about because it's hilarious how he pulls that together. But I've also been talking about this with friends for like the last couple weeks because I think that the depiction of how they arrive at their quote-unquote decision-making process for who to boot from the platform is probably what a lot of these companies in Silicon Valley have actually been doing, which is there is no principle behind it whatsoever. It's just, let's list out all of the people that we think are bad or that could be offensive or that could do, and that list is funny. And they basically do a tournament bracket system where purely subjectively, purely based on this 6 people in this room, they decide, who wins in various brackets.
Who's the worst,
basically. And, of course, they arrive all the way back at
Nazis.
Nazis the worst.
Nazis beat out Patriots fans and Democrats and Republicans.
That's right. That's right. So, but I've been thinking about this a lot because I think that this is like in a world where you don't actually have any principle around freedom of speech or around an understanding of what marks the line of acceptable versus not acceptable, right? Or why certain things are unacceptable. You don't set clear rules. You just set, sort of subjective policies that are really just built around your own personal preferences. So there are, I think, good reasons to ban somebody from a game or from playing a game or something like that. And, and we can talk about those kinds of things like harassment, calls to violence. Like there's all kinds of things that you could do that you could set as a very clear position on this is allowed, that's not allowed, without saying, I don't like you or I don't like the group that I've identified you with, therefore you're going to get booted. But I don't think that's what anybody does. And the show, I think, to its credit, like just kind of shows the absurdity of how that decision-making process was made. But also, we should talk about the diversity committee in general. Jen, you got to that episode, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. How did you feel about about the diversity committee?
God, that was hashtag too real as far as I'm concerned. Like, you go through, like they went through and they found just, the token black, the Indian guy, the lesbian.
Danny Pudi, by the way, I gotta say, one of my favorite characters in this entire
Very diabolical.
Diabolical character.
Oh my goodness. And the like Midwestern conservative.
Who, by the way, I don't think would exist in this environment
No,
at all. But,
not at all.
No, and she was, oh God. This committee, like it was, they organized this diversity committee, right? And then promptly ignored anything that they had to say about like legitimate concerns about representation and diversity and tolerance and all that good stuff. Like
they also pulled them. They also pulled them in. So I mean, obviously, but so blatantly because of their token statuses.
Yeah,
they didn't.
absolutely.
There was no even attempt to assess whether or not they had anything to say or any opinions about anything. Dana doesn't have any opinions about any of this. Didn't care. Didn't want to be there. Just wanted to go back to her gig testing the game and like playing the game. And like she's like, this is a waste of time. Yep. But hey, she was the one black girl that you have to bring onto the show, or into the committee, and it's just like, yeah, all right. And everybody knows,
Yeah, it was to the show's credit, it just has a whole send up of practices like that, and it was more offensive creating the committee than what the committee was doing together. Like the conversations you had to get the people into that room to make this decision was offensive in and of themselves.
Yeah, and and honestly, to some extent, I'm really glad, because It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia has a history of doing this kind of humor.
Yes.
Going back to really the first episode, right? Which is literally like the guys get racist or whatever. But I'm glad that they didn't lose that coming into this show, because it's a different world now than when It's Always Sunny started. And it'd be I think it's a lot harder. You take a lot more anger and animosity from doing this kind of bit. But I think it's an important bit to do, because it's like, here you are actually mocking this idea that we're pulling people in because of their skin color, because of their gender, because of their sexual identity, whatever. We're not pulling any of them in because we think what they have to say has value, or they've expressed some ideas that matter, or anything. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just literally, are you one of these? Are you one of those? One of these, one of those. We got you. We got one of you.
Checked all the boxes.
Checked all these boxes. And you're like, okay, now what?
Yep.
We have no idea. Now, once they got the committee together, they don't know what they're asking for. They don't know what their goals are, their purpose is. They don't know how to even begin talking about any of this stuff. It's just entirely the wrong approach to every aspect of this. And it's real. It's like, that was like the one thing in that episode. I was like, yeah, they really nailed the game industry, mm-hmm. especially, and the entertainment industry in general. But like, yeah, they hit it.
No punches pulled. And I think I was surprised, and with Apple TV Plus, I was surprised the show exists on Apple TV.
I'm a little surprised too. I wouldn't have expected Apple to be the network that
would let Charlie Day in.
The network. I'm calling Apple
the service
a network.
You're just getting ready for the future.
I know. It's too late. It's already here.
So yeah, Apple TV. I'm just surprised, pleasantly surprised that they allow this kind of stuff. Because
I want to talk about Apple TV for a minute too. By the way, sorry, this is a little bit of a tangent, but like, I don't know where they're going with their programming.
They got money, and they're gonna spend it. That is where they're going.
That seems to be where they're going. Except for like, have you guys looked at like the totality of the lineup on Apple TV currently?
Not a lot.
It's not a lot, but it doesn't make any sense either. I can't see any connection to any of, like, there's no, like, if you're a fan of X, Apple TV is the service for you, right? Like, I could not tell you what X was in that context. They've got,
at this point, I feel like they're just trying to make a show for everyone.
Yeah.
Which, so far,
maybe that's the right move at this stage. I'm not really sure, but like,
yeah,
it's very shotgun.
It's interesting. And to their credit, like I said, giving proven creators the room to do what they do, that's something to be said for that, because you don't Always Sunny, I feel like, is an outlier. I also feel like this show is kind of an outlier as well
Yeah.
on what they were saying and making fun of. So I'm glad they're giving them that opportunity, because when Apple TV was first announced, I'm like, oh, I'm probably not going to watch anything on this. This is probably just going to be some pretty throwaway stuff.
That was my plan.
Yeah.
Until you changed my plan.
Gotta believe.
It's all right. You gotta believe. All right, we haven't gotten to that episode or that show yet. We'll get to that show later. Jen has to do it.
Sorry. My lights turned off again.
See what I said at the beginning of the episode about technical difficulties that we will have to sort out as we go through this.
We should get you a wacky inflatable
I
fun
think
guy.
we need to put a little robot that sits on the table and just
Paul had the right
move.
idea. You get a wacky inflatable flailing tube man and
Problem solved.
problem solved. Just have that guy just whoop.
There you go.
Oh man.
my
So
goodness.
besides the diversity stuff, I mean, we're kind of like talking about that with Mythic Quest, but there's a lot in the show that I think we can talk about. I mean, certainly the dynamic between Ian having Ian just the lamest version. And by the way, when I was watching the first episode with my wife Marion, and she's like, "Did he just say Ian?" It's like, ugh.
Yeah.
It's just like, but that was the point, right?
I can hear her saying that. Like in my head, I can hear her saying that. That's great.
Yeah. But the dynamic between Ian, who's Rob McElhenney's character, is like creative director for the game, and Poppy, Charlotte Nickdow's character, who is the lead engineer. Like, that was a great dynamic, and I think it's also interesting, like, speaking, as a creative director, like, there are models that I try not to follow, and the lunatic narcissist is sort of that, in that vein of, like, I'm always sensitive to the idea of, like, that kind of person, because I've had those bosses before. Like, I've had the kind of boss where, like, they just storm in the middle of whatever you are doing and then just announce, what was it? Blood Ocean. Like, Blood Ocean.
I don't know what it is.
I don't know what it is, but it sounds awesome, and you're gonna make it. And it's like, I'm working on stuff. I'm doing a thing. Yeah, but Blood Ocean. And you're like, okay. Well, the lunatic spoke, so now
Here we go. Here's an all-nighter.
we have to, now I'm going to work till 3 o'clock in the morning. That's how it's going to go, And, I try really hard not to be that guy, but it is hilarious to watch because it is so common
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
in the creative fields. So
It
crazy.
is. I did appreciate how real the vibe felt amongst the creative team. Because, I've worked on collaborative projects before, and, the creative process is not easy, just ever.
No.
But, and especially when you're working with a group, and maybe you don't always see eye to eye on the vision, that kind of thing. But, the dynamic on display in Mythic Quest is incredibly toxic, but it's also incredibly common.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that.
Yeah, I think I was talking to my mother-in-law about this. I think it was related to one of the episodes of the show, actually, because she was watching it with us. But like a lot of the worst bosses I've had, so I think I told her this. When I moved to Los Angeles in 2007, I guess, end of 2007, beginning of 2008. I got the job in 2007, I think. The job that I got, I was told after the fact that I beat out like 300 people for that job. This was peak, not peak, but it was like right in the swing of the financial crisis. So there were just, everybody was out of work. Everybody's looking for jobs. Really hard to find anything. It was a job as a music manager for a company. It's actually Barry Manilow's company. I don't talk about it a whole lot, but I don't think I've talked about it on the show ever. But But for an entertainment company that produced, live entertainment music for all kinds of things. But the job I worked for was on cruise ships. I worked as the guy who oversaw all the instrumental music on 4, sort of technically 5, but 4 of Holland America's cruise ships in 2008. And fun gig, interesting gig. Basically traveled the world, bouncing from one ship to another, dealing with personnel issues, gear, coaching, whatever needed to be done. A lot of times actually also kind of working as a liaison between the performers and the crew of the ship, because the captain and the crew, captain's still everybody's boss. If you're on a ship, it doesn't matter if you're a contractor or if you're the entertainment or whatever. Like if the captain says to do something, the captain is, the dictator of the ship, basically. But also captains don't really understand that a trumpet player can't play 9 hours a day every day. Yeah. So, you can't just demand that these guys play constantly. So it was a really interesting gig. But I've had a lot of gigs, including that one, where there were hundreds of people stacked up behind me waiting to do my job, right? And the thing is, when you've got that level of an imbalance between supply and demand in that context, the pay is not very good, and frankly, the treatment can be not very good, and people still put up with it because they know that it's hard to find the next thing, and there would be a million people waiting in the wings to take the gig. It's a challenge. I mean, and you're always going to be at the mercy of that kind of problem if you're not differentiated very well in your work, And I think the lesson that I learned kind of early on was the quicker I could get myself into a position where I was the only one who was able to do the specific thing that I was doing, and where that thing was actually valuable to other people, that put me in a completely different world. It's gone from being, working for creative companies where I kind of have to tolerate really bad behavior from my coworkers or from bosses or whatever, to a position where I can be really choosy about stuff, and then actually build a team and everything else. But I feel like that's a good lesson for people. Don't, the video game industry is an industry everybody wants to be in, but also, you could also build your own thing.
Right.
And maybe that'd be better in some cases. How are you feeling, Jen?
I'm struggling right now, but I'll power through.
Yeah, I don't know, Paul, have you had any kind of...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mythic Quest, Ian, who he comes out later in the season that his name is actually Ian, but that was his dad's name, and he hated his dad. Imagine that. So he calls himself Ian, and it's stuck. I've had plenty of bosses just like that, not in the creative field,
politics,
but politics, and
but it's a similar problem. Right?
It is. So I experienced having this kind of a boss in the world of politics, and while obviously it's not a creative director, this type of coming in at the 11th hour and being just demanding ridiculous things and expecting it to be done, and then having
on an insane timeline.
Right. It has to be done in 30 minutes. Yeah. And it's already 8 p.m. So it taught me a lot. Taught me a lot about boundaries and also about self-worth. And fortunately, I have taken those experiences and I know what I don't want to be as someone who manages people and just being in general a person and a coworker. You just don't want to be that.
Yeah.
And it really brought up a lot of those memories for me, which at this point it's not like I'm traumatized by them, but it just makes me appreciate about where I am in my career, I'm glad I had those experiences, but I'm glad I'm still not there.
I always think about, I had worked in a commercial music production house in New York, and I've told this story before, but where, the bosses, my actual bosses, the heads of the company, or pair of partners who just screamed at each other all day, and they'd get in fights. If they were there together, they'd probably be yelling at each other and fighting. And then I worked for, I was an assistant music supervisor, And my actual boss, the music supervisor for the company, was not a bad guy. He was actually a decent boss, but we were both beholden to the producers who worked with advertising agencies and, you know, big brands and stuff like that. And they'd be the ones who would come in, you know, they'd come in at 4 o'clock in the afternoon after a night of drinking with their advertising clients. And they just roll up at 4 and then be like, oh, hey, so we were talking to the client last night. And yeah, we're going to have to like completely overhaul this entire section of this, whatever. And it'd be like, oh, I mean, I've been here since 9. Like you could have, like I probably could have done it.
Would have been done today.
Or yeah, it would have been done. No, we got to have it done by tomorrow. Yeah, but it's 4. Like I've been here since 9. I'm kind of winding down here, trying to get out. No. Sorry, man. Got to get it by tonight. In fact, it's got to be done, you know, before 1 a.m. today. And it'd just be stuff like that where you'd be like, yeah, I'm also in grad school. Like I got classes I got to go to. I got work I got to do, like all this kind of stuff. Not to mention, just again, to your point, like it's just self-worth. It's just being able to look at that situation and say, no, I am more valuable than that. And I don't need to take that kind of behavior. And I think, you know, that's hard to do when you're really just starting out. But I actually think it's an important lesson to go through and kind of figure out that, like, no, you don't need to be in those environments. And honestly, if that's what your entire industry is filled with, like, it's not a great industry.
No.
You know, and fortunately, I think we've like people have gotten away with that in different contexts, politics, entertainment, you know, stuff like that, especially for centuries. But I think what's changed a little bit is the fact that we all have a lot more power now to start our own thing.
Right.
You know, like you can actually go out and write your own music for yourself in your own studio. And yeah, it's going to be harder. You're going to have to slog your way to finding clients and all that kind of stuff. But like, for me at least, like doing my own work was just 1,000% better than doing work for other people in that sense. You know, so this is just, I got to be able to do all kinds of stuff that, you know, I didn't think I would be able to do, and certainly didn't have the opportunities to do when I was working for the kind of Ions of the world. Right. I don't know. Anyway, so I guess I kind of want to wrap up our conversation about Mythic Quest. I dug it. I thought it was pretty fun. I'm kind of looking forward to a season 2. I'm not entirely sure where they'll go. I think there's a lot you can do with the game industry and you know, Poppy and Ian's relationship and David and everybody else. It should be fun.
Yeah, and they also came out with a special quarantine episode. Which is probably the best TV show that I've seen dealing with the quarantine.
Agreed. Fully agreed. And I don't know, Jen, did you watch the quarantine special?
No, I didn't get to the quarantine special. Oh. I had lots of other things to do and watch.
So I I'm with you. Like I almost didn't do it because I thought, whatever, whatever. But because of the nature of the show, doing an all Zoom call show worked perfectly. Yeah. And especially when you've got people like we didn't even talk about like F. Murray Abraham's character is like the writer, this old man writer who's like trying to get on the Zoom call, but like, you know, can't get the video to work. Then he can't get the sound to work. Then he's not there. Can't find the link. And it's just all that kind of stuff. Just it fit perfectly for that show. It was really good. Plus they did like a nice kind of multi-screen Rube Goldberg-y kind of fun thing. And
Poppy's arc of dealing with quarantine at the beginning of the show, where she just threw herself into the work and then everything was done and she just had a breakdown.
Just really good.
Her family was, you know, based in Australia.
Yep.
And she hadn't seen anybody. She lived by herself, and I'm like,
yeah.
Even though I wasn't in the same situation, I was surrounded by family, like being isolated, you can relate to that. And you just nobody's really talked about that yet. The tolls that this lockdown and quarantine has taken on our society and on everyone. And
I mean, I've been talking about it on Out of Frame since like April of last year, and I agree. Like it's hard to get anybody else to care, which I think is crazy because we're seeing such spikes in depression and suicide and drug use and all of these things, and you're just like, why aren't we as a society like
why aren't we talking about this?
screaming about this? This is a huge toll on people.
And it's so interesting. You just talk to some of my friends and we just start talking and I'm like, feel the same way.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
I feel like everyone is feeling this, but it's always kind of like, oh, I can't, I don't want to kill grandma. So
yeah, I know. So we just won't do it, and we'll just eat the problems and the pain and everything.
Yeah.
That's weird. It's weird. But that's special. I agree with you. That was the best. That was the best like sort of quarantine thing that I think I've seen. So kudos to the show. Anyway, so I want to wrap it up here for that. For everybody who supports us on Patreon or Subscribestar, we now have a Subscribestar page as well. Both of those are patreon.com/outoframeshow or subscribestar.com/outoframeshow. Stick around, and we are going to come back right after a short break with a discussion of what we feel like is fairly related, Ready Player One, which is what it's like to be inside the MMORPG, I think. But we'll come back with that conversation. For everybody who's not a subscriber to the show, we love you anyway. Thank you for listening, watching. Check us out on anywhere you can listen to podcasts. Please share with your friends. Please share the YouTube channel with your friends and follow us on Discord, or actually join us on Discord and then follow us on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere you can find a thing. So thank you so much for listening and watching, and we will see you next time.